Cody Garbrandt and TJ Dillashaw are set to fight for the 135 title relatively soon. They've got their season with Ultimate Fighter coming up, so obviously they'll have to go through the entire season and work that way through the build-up. But in a recent interview, Cody Garbrandt had talked about his goals in terms of what he wants to do, whether it's at 135 and be a long-term champion there, what he wants to do beyond that. And he drew some attention saying that he wants to be a 3-division weight champion. Obviously, Conor McGregor is the first one to simultaneously hold 2 belts. Garbrandt wants to hold more than 2. He wants to hold 3. Right now he's at 135. The other 2 weight classes he's talking about would be 125 and 145. So he's looking at Mighty Mouse Johnson at 125 and then 45. Right now it's kind of up in the air between Holloway and Aldo. That'll get settled relatively soon. But as far as what I think about this, I've said before, and I think I'm going to stick with it because I really like what he's doing. Even though Cody Garbrandt, personally, he's the kind of guy where when I watch him fight, I kind of want to see him lose. For whatever reason, just seeing a guy with a gun tattooed in his waistband or the diamond tattooed on his neck that says self-made, like, there's something just inherently douchey about his look that where it's like you just want to see him lose. And even though he's got the good stuff going with Maddox Maple, where he's taking care of a former cancer survivor, it's one of those things where it's like, great on him on that behalf, but he's definitely done some stuff in his past that's pretty reprehensible. But that's beside the point. I think that about him is a good thing for him because in MMA and just as far as sports entertainment goes, to be one of those guys, we're going to have people who love you, people who see your tattoos and like it, and people who see it and hate it. They're going to want to see you either way. So whether you want to watch Cody Garbrandt lose his next fight or whether you want to watch him win, you're still watching him, and that's good for him. And that's really big in building a star. Obviously, not everybody who watches Conor McGregor wants to see him win. There was plenty of cheering when I was at the bar at UFC 196 when Nate Diaz beat him. A lot of people were really happy at that time. So the same type of thing can happen for Cody Garbrandt if he does lose. But between him and Dillashaw, that's a fight that's going to be really interesting because it sounds like it was pretty even in the training room. They haven't been training together for the last couple of years. You'd wonder who's improved more since then. Obviously, Dillashaw being a former alpha male guy, he's improved since then. But within that camp and even within Cody Garbrandt, when you've got guys who've trained together for so long, even if one guy is noticeably better against other guys, when 2 people train together, a lot of times they learn each other's tendencies, so the gap gets really close on that end. But if Garbrandt is able to get the better of Dillashaw, if he does win that matchup, and he does look to go to other weight classes, I think that matchup with Demetrius Johnson is actually a really interesting one. What's really good about Mighty Mouse is he's really good all around. He's good on the ground, he's good on the feet, good wrestler, but if he's ever fighting someone and he's striking with them and he's having difficulty striking, he can get the fight to the ground pretty quickly and then just get in control from there. If he's not exactly doing great on the ground, then he can make it more of a stand-up fight and start controlling from there. But in a fight with a guy like Garbrandt, if you're on the feet, that's going to be a tough one for him to control regardless. Now, he's going to be pretty quick. His footwork's going to work out for him. But again, he's going to be outsized by Garbrandt, so that'll be a tough spot for Mighty Mouse to deal with. If Mighty Mouse does have trouble with Garbrandt's boxing, again, his boxing is fantastic. Good luck getting him down. Garbrandt's a guy who, even though his resume only really says that he was a high school All-American, the guy easily would be a D1 wrestler if he had continued wrestling. Obviously, he's been wrestling a lot of Team Alpha Male, so it's not like he just stopped doing the sport or stopped grappling whatsoever. Cruz is very effective at getting people down. He had no luck in doing that against Garbrandt. You'd have to wonder if Mighty Mouse would be able to get him down. If not, and he's having trouble on the feet and he gets forced into a boxing match with Cody Garbrandt, which is no easy task. How does he do there? I think that's a real matchup where with a lot of these guys who are seeing Mighty Mouse fight, it doesn't really feel like there's any great opportunity or any chance for them to trap him in one area of the game that they can beat him. With Cody, I think he might be able to do that. It's just I don't know that Cody's going to be able to make 25. I don't know if he wants to do a catch weight at 130 and just kind of have a super fight. But if he's talking about being a 3-division weight champion, you have to cut down to 25 to win the 25 belt. So if that ever happens, I actually think that could be a great fight, not just for Cody, but for both of them. One of the problems that Mighty Mouse has had is that he hasn't really had a good nemesis. He's been so dominant in most of his fights that we haven't really had a fight where it's like, oh shit, Mighty Mouse is fighting, say, Benavidez, or Mighty Mouse is fighting Dotson. I can't wait to see what happens here. Like, you kind of know when it's Mighty Mouse versus name your fighter. Mighty Mouse is going to win, and he's going to look really good in doing so. So if he has a fight with Garbrandt, and if it's even competitive in the first fight, regardless of who wins, that could finally be the matchup and the rivalry for Mighty Mouse that he needs to finally build himself into a star. And hopefully if Garbrandt does beat him, that he's able to still do well out of that and build a name for himself, because he deserves to be a lot bigger than he is. But again, he's not doing a great job of getting his name out there, and he's not exactly having guys where he's building good rivalries with. So it's tough to have people watch Mighty Mouse and get super excited about a fight that's coming up with him, or remember him from a super exciting rivalry and want to see him fight again. And then at 45, it seems like by the time that's all settled, whether it's your Jose Aldo or Max Holloway or maybe even someone else, it seems like all the top guys at featherweight are bigger guys than Cody, but they're all guys who strike really well. All guys who can grapple pretty decently too, but their striking seems to be their strongest aspect. So it'll be interesting to see how a Max Holloway versus Cody Garbrandt fight would look. I think that would interest me the most. Aldo versus Garbrandt would be pretty good, but we've seen Aldo against a lot of the other alpha male guys in the past, whether it was Faber, a couple fights with Mendez. Even if Garbrandt's a little better than those guys, I don't know that the fights are going to be drastically different unless it's just a matter of Garbrandt hitting harder than Mendez or anyone else and being able to finish where other guys weren't. Whereas Holloway is a guy who's really technical striker, really good at making in-fight adjustments, and you'd like to see. We saw a guy in Dominic Cruz who's also great at making in-fight adjustments, and he lost a couple of later rounds. Would Holloway do a better job? Would Holloway also have trouble? It'll be interesting to see either way, but if that's something that Cody wants to do, I'm definitely supportive of it. I think there's some really interesting fights to make there. Yes, it might suck for the bantamweight class if they're champions fighting at 25 or 45, but there's something really interesting to see there, and I think it'd be worth the trouble. If you have to do an interim title, so be it. But those are fights that I really would be interested in seeing.